You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through.
Michael Phineas here now with the impact that Prop 103 has had in this state.
Yeah, let me tell you, it saved billions and billions and billions, at least according to this study. $60 billion worth of savings can all be tracked back to the voter-approved Prop 103. Auto insurance rates around the country have skyrocketed, while California rates have merely inched up. That's the findings of a new study issued today. Why? The Consumer Federation of America credits Prop 103.
The rates have been held down, the best performance in the country.
Harvey Rosenfield was the driving force between Prop 103. He says under 103, insurance companies get a fair return and consumers get a fair price.
Between 1989, when 103 took effect, and now, the auto insurance premiums in California have only risen by 12.9%, whereas in the national average rate of growth, 50%.
Because the Auto Club has agreed to issue $22.5 million in refunds to its policy holders. It's all due to a lawsuit by the Foundation for Taxpayer and Consumer Rights under Proposition 103.
So what we're advocating is that Allstate needs to lower its rates under new regulations that just passed.
Allstate was ordered by a judge in San Francisco today to roll back its auto insurance rates effective on Monday. That could apply to you. Allstate was told to comply with a $250 million rate reduction.
Well, the company is State Farm Insurance, and they've just announced a cut that will save their clients over $200 million a year.
Consumer advocates say the real credit goes to voters who passed Proposition 103 in 1988.
It was just last week when President Bush seemed so shocked at a news conference when someone mentioned $4 a gallon gas prices.
You're predicting $4 a gallon gas?
A number of analysts are predicting $4 a gallon gasoline this spring when they reformulate.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that.
But today, just 4 days later, $4 a gallon gas is a reality. That has some consumer watchdog groups wondering if prices are this high now. How high will they be during peak driving season?
Is frightening because it is so early in the season.
The Foundation for Taxpayer and Consumer Rights Group says the problem isn't demand.
I think that you've got to look at why the price of oil is higher, and that stems from very speculative markets that have nothing to do with actual supply and demand. And the companies are benefiting from that artificially high price of crude.
It is an honor Chevron could do without. Tonight, it received the Golden Nozzle Award for what one consumer group calls sticking it to the customers. The group presented the trophy to a Chevron representative outside a closed-door meeting in Los Angeles. The Chevron representative only said he wished the group did more research. He says if they had, the group would find everyone suffering from rising fuel costs, including Chevron.
As temperatures rise, gasoline at the pumps expands. That means 1 gallon of gas delivers less energy. So the hotter it gets, in essence, the more you pay.
Californians are paying, on average, 3.7 cents per gallon extra for their gasoline.
Is the money really enough to justify congressional hearings?
Sure. It's a $2.3 billion ripoff nationally every year.
The nation's largest oil company has placed tiny stickers on its gas pumps, warning consumers that they may not be getting a full gallon of gasoline. One consumer group is calling on ExxonMobil and other oil companies to sell an honest gallon of gasoline year-round.
Oil companies now are acknowledging through this sticker that there is a ripoff.
The U.S. Senate is considering legislation that would require oil companies to install pumps with temperature adjustments.
Consumer advocates say the industry's initial response to disaster is usually good, but that can change.
As you get further away from the disaster, the insurance companies seem to get tighter and tighter, and they squeeze harder and harder.
Homeowners insurers have simply stopped promising to replace homeowners' homes for all that they're worth.
Insurance companies use a host of different tricks to get people to accept low-ball settlements.
So even if the insurance companies had to pay $1 or even $2 billion for these fires, they'd still be making money.
There's plenty of money in the insurance companies' coffers here in California to cover these claims and still be walking away with several $1 billion in profit.
As 17-year-old Natalie Sarkisian lay dying in the hospital, friends and nurses marched on the insurance company that had denied her a liver transplant. The company, Cigna, called the transplant experimental, not covered.
Insurers will call anything experimental if it's got a six-figure price tag.
Insurance companies have a financial incentive to deny coverage and call it experimental and investigational.
Consumer Watchdog's Jerry Flanagan believes Blue Shield's denials on that experimental and investigational basis are arbitrary and may violate state law.
The bottom line here is that it's not up to the insurance company to decide who gets what treatment. The law requires that the doctor gets to decide.
It's only after you've had a surgery that the insurance company then retroactively cancels your policy. Not only are you uninsured at that point, you've been left with hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills. As well, you are uninsurable in California.
State regulators announced a landmark decision to reinstate up to 4,000 or 5,000 patients. It's a major step on the road to justice for those patients, but we can't stop here.
A new poll shows Californians are overwhelmingly opposed to the governor's mandatory health insurance proposal.
The minute you tell the public they have to buy a product that costs as much as health insurance without regulation of those costs, the public turns on this proposal quicker than an HMO bureaucrat can deny a claim.
In fact, California has just such a rate regulation plan already in effect when it comes to our auto insurance. Legislation that would regulate health insurance like car insurance has been introduced by Assemblyman David Jones. Flanagan says voters should insist it become law.
This organization understands that the way to build a fair and just society is not through baby steps, not through concession or incremental solutions, but with big ideas and with an obvious backbone to match.
That is an outrageous insult. It undermines the very contract that the companies have with the consumer. This company has an obligation to its customers. Sprint needs to give these people their money back.
If he has the gall to go to these private gala parties where special interests are funding but doesn't show up for the people, that would be such an outrage and such a slap in the face of the voters.
Micra has been a complete disaster for the people of California. It's been great for the insurance companies.
I think every company should make a fair profit. The problem with Exxon is that they are not looking ahead about the consequences of the way they're pumping oil. Since they're acting irresponsibly, saying a windfall tax that would fund alternative energy research would be very appropriate.
Health insurance isn't insurance if it doesn't protect patients from financial catastrophe.
If we really want to address health insurance in this country, we got to look at reining in the cost, reining in the waste, reining in the fraud, reining in the profiteering. These are employers saying we can't manage it, the largest employers in the nation. But the true answer here is if the Fortune 500 doesn't want to deal with health insurance, fine, let's expand Medicare.
You can take on the biggest industry in this country and you can win.
To the other side.